I'm Jennie Gage, and this is Life Take Two. All right, hi everybody. I'm Jennie Gage, and this is Life Take Two. I'm used to be the podcast for survivors, but we're kind of turning into the podcast for the rebels, those of us who are just regular old Americans fighting hard to make the America of the future the type of place that we want our children to grow up in. And I appreciate you watching today. Today, I have a guest that I've been so excited to talk to, and I am thrilled to share his story with you. I met Chris here I don't know, was it about a month ago?
Yeah, I think so.
I did a video where I called for senators and politicians, anybody in office to reach out to me so that we could dialogue. And Chris sent me a little email, said, I'm just kind of a regular Joe, but I'm running for office. And I also have a dream for America and for my hometown. And we've talked back and forth, and I'm absolutely inspired by what Chris Volpe is doing. So I'm thrilled to bring him to you as part of our hashtag Denim Revolution, honestly. Chris, I never like to do people's bios for them because I feel like you know yourself better than I do. So would you introduce yourself to my audience?
Well, sure. Yeah. First of all, Jenny, thank you for having me again. The conversation we had a month ago was really exciting. And I appreciate you having me on your show so that we can just sort of chat. But like you said, I am just a normal guy. I live in beautiful Columbus, Ohio. I've lived here most of my life. I am not a politician. This is the first race I've ever run in. I just sort of sat around. This was in February, and I was looking at the way the world was going, and I didn't like it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just kind of poke around at this idea of how I can be involved, because I want to be an active participant in the world I live in and in constructing the world I want to live in over the next 30, 40 years, the back half of my life, if you will. But before I did any of that, I have a wild and woolly backstory.
I want to hear it. The origin story. Give us that.
Oh, you want the origin story?
Origin story, backstory, whatever you got.
Sure.
Paint the picture of who you are for us.
Absolutely. So right now, I do, before we logged on when we were in the quote unquote green room, we were joking about how we all have like multiple jobs. I've got like 5 jobs right now. I own a video game and software company, which I started over a decade ago. I run the Midwest's largest gaming expo and conference, which we started. This was year 13. We just did that 2 weeks ago. That was really exciting. I'm also a teacher. Do you want to tell us
what it's called? Would you like to shout out what the conference is? And
sure. Yeah, it's called GDEX, GDEX. It's thegdex.com. And so if you're interested in video games or interactive design, I would highly check it out. We do it in Columbus every year in the fall. And we've got plenty of stuff like we had, not that this has to be the GDEX hour, but it's my baby. I do love it. But we had over 80 educational experiences and sessions and workshops last year. We have tons of developers that come. We've got people showcasing technology, all sorts of fun stuff. And we did it for a way of Columbus developers originally to just kind of connect with each other. And it's since grown into this larger event because there's just so many cool people, passionate developers, artists, musicians, actors that are involved in this industry, but people just don't think about Ohio in that regard. And we just wanted to create something where we could do it. And like I said, the first year we did it 13 years ago, we're just like, if we can get 50, 100 people to come to this thing besides us, we'd consider that a win. We ended up 2 weeks before the show was going to be in September. We just ended up getting blown up with emails, people wanting to speak and sponsor and exhibit. And I was like, I don't know where these people found it. Like if we got on some blog or something, we're like, well, what do we do? So we pushed it back. We pushed it back to the first weekend of December, biggest blizzard of the year. We were carting all our crap in at 6 a.m. in the sleet and the snow. But we went from 13 exhibitors to 33. We ended up with over 750 attendees come from 8 states. And we added all-day speaking sessions and stuff. So that's just an example of us like building this community together and how you can like really, if you have an idea, a vision, and you have people around you that are good people that want to be involved in something important, that's just an example of how you can do something like that. I'm happy to talk about the games industry and community that I've built here as well.
Chris, can I put a pin in that right there? Because this is so important. I have my Denim Revolution that's going pretty strong. And for anyone who wants to know more, just drop the word denim in the comment section. Denim Revolution, I think that I've shared a little bit with you, is America's answer to the Velvet Revolution. We don't need all out war to make a change in society. We can quietly build back our tribes, come together as people, and turn the direction of our nation and ensure a better future for our kids. So step one, I have my little papers up here on my magnet board that's behind my laptop here in my studio. Step one is building back your tribe. It's building those villages and not just being at the whim of the billionaires and corporations and the billionaire and trillionaire churches, but actually building back our own tribes. And I love that you just brought out, because I talk to a bunch of artists. I'm always talking to people who have different networking groups, whether that's, little neighborhood book parties, things like that. Book clubs, I guess. It's not a book party. It's always a party for me. If there's a book, it's a party.
It's always a party.
It's always a party. But I love that you just
Did you say if there's a book, there's a party? You should you should make a shirt for that.
I will make a shirt for that.
The reason that I had to run is because my dog is yelling at me. She wanted to up on my lap, so she was yelling at me. So apologies. This is Baby.
Baby, cute.
Mm-hmm. She's a 13-year-old Yorkie Poodle mix, all 6 pounds of fury.
She's adorable. So thank you for perfectly highlighting for us how that you have built a community and a village for the gaming community there in Ohio. I think Ohio is a beautiful place. I used to trek through Ohio with my ex-husband. We did cross-country, long haul. So it's kind of fun. Ohio's beautiful. I fell in love with it. All right.
I think Ohio's awesome, personally.
I think Ohio's awesome. Are you born and raised, or did you move from somewhere else?
Yeah, so I was born here in Columbus, and then my dad was in the Navy, and so we lived in the Philippines for a little bit. We lived in Rhode Island for a little bit, and then we came back here. My family, the Volpe clan, is from Cleveland. That's where they lived, and then they moved down to Columbus. But yeah, out of my 44 years of existence, I've been in Columbus, 39, 40 of them, something like that.
Long time. So you're pretty, you're authentic Ohio.
I grew up here, went to high school here. I've got 3 degrees from the OSU, Ohio State University. I've traveled a lot. I've been to a lot of places, and I'm not throwing shade on any other states, because there's tons of beautiful places in the U.S., but I just always really like this city. And a lot of people don't think about Columbus or even Ohio in general, but we have a great food scene. Columbus is a very diverse city. We've got tons of ethnic food that's amazing, lots of fun activities. It's a young, creative city where we are often vying for one of the top gayest cities in the country, which is always fun.
That's interesting.
Yeah, people don't think about it. We have a huge Latino population, a huge Somali population, a huge Asian population. And so just Columbus is a really good city. But then outside of that, I think Ohio, like Dayton, I think it's got one of the best steak restaurants in definitely in the state, but in the country. So I could talk about Ohio all day long if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, it's really cool. And a little factoid that some of my audience knows is that I lost my first fiance, who was the love of my life until I met Kevin, to a Mormon mission to Ohio. He was in, oh my gosh, I'll think of the name. Kettering. Is there a Kettering, Ohio?
Yeah, Kettering.
Does that exist? Yeah.
That does exist.
That's where he was. So
that's where the mission went?
Yeah. Okay. We were engaged in college. I was 18 years old. I had just turned 18 when I got engaged, because that's the Mormon way. And then he went off on his mission to teach the Mormon gospel in Kettering, Ohio, is where he spent most of his time. And I would piece that up with somebody else and never see him again. But my little bit of my heart is in Ohio, because that's where Ryan went. So
okay. I always think it's kind of wild. This has nothing to do with anything, but for some reason, on the YouTube and stuff, I listen to a lot of different Mormon content, and there seems to be a common thing sometimes where people are waiting to get their placements for their missions, and someone's like Paris or China or whatever, and then some people are like Kettering, Ohio. Okay. Yeah. Nothing against Kettering, but it ain't Buenos Aires, right?
Well, it's interesting that you don't get a pick, because then when I left the Mormon church at age 44 and I morphed immediately into a huge Christian church, you picked your mission trip. So, hey, we're doing a mission trip to Mexico, and you'd pay the money and you'd sign up and you go, or you could go over to, I think they did one to I don't know, they were always going to Africa, places like that.
Sure.
And in the Mormon church, you don't do that. You send your papers into the prophet and he sends back. It's just a letter. My son went on a mission. As a family, we opened up that letter and he reads it. And yeah, he went to Houston, Texas. So it's some of his friends were going to Russia and New Zealand. And he's like, Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to pick your own life. Okay, so gaming, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to your origin story.
Sure. Additionally, I'm a teacher. I teach a full-time teaching load at Columbus State. I've also taught at several other universities, mostly in the gaming space, focus on game design, but also creating businesses. I've helped, I don't know, hundreds of businesses get up and running and started and grow. I've taught thousands of students at this point. I've been teaching for over a decade. I work one day a week at my local gym, the front desk, and cleaning and mopping the floors. And that's always a really good time. It gets me introduced to a lot of different people. Before this, I was in healthcare. So I was actually headed towards being a physician.
Good job. I don't know why anyone becomes a doctor. We need doctors, but man, that's a hard job.
I really loved healthcare. I'm a big systems guy, so I really love the healthcare system and how you can improve efficiencies. Since I came back to school, I got a fine arts degree in photography, and I went back to school for medicine. Since I was kind of off cycle, plus, as you can imagine, you don't take a lot of the prerequisites for med school and art school. So I had to go do another 2 years of schooling. So I was working full-time at OSU while doing my pre-med stuff. And then I ended up taking a public health course. It was the first public health course that they offered to undergraduates. When I just took it on a whim, it seemed interesting and I really loved it. So I finished my pre-med stuff. I took my MCATs. And then since I was off cycle, I was like, well, I'll go ahead and apply for a master's degree in public health and just see if they'll accept me or not. They ended up accepting me. And while I was there, I ended up doing a secondary master's in health administration. Interestingly, with all the healthcare talk going on, my specializations are in healthcare administration, which is understanding hospitals and how healthcare systems work. And my specialization in public health, I actually have two, was health behavior and health promotion, which is obviously a very big conversation that's going on right now, as well as I was the first cohort to get the international global health specialization, which, as you can imagine, was very important during COVID. And I just really, really loved healthcare. But while I was doing that, again, since I was off cycle from entering med school, I was working at the med center. And I worked in this innovation studio. It no longer exists at OSU. My responsibility there was to look at technologies. Didn't matter where that technology came from and see if there was any kind of like healthcare use for it. So I got to meet a lot of cool people, a lot of cool conversations. I met one of the guys who started HBO and MTV, which was pretty wild. It was a really cool guy.
I wasn't allowed to watch MTV because I was a Mormon. I remember one day coming home singing Like a Virgin because I'd been over at a friend's house whose parents did allow her to watch MTV, and my mom flipped her lid. And yeah, we were never allowed to have it. We didn't have cable. My parents kept us sheltered. So
yeah, well,
when I grew up and got my own cable, I immediately got MTV, and I'd come home from work and just watch all the things I wasn't supposed to be watching.
The early days of MTV, like through the 80s and 90s, it was a special time.
So none of that says anything about political science or law. You're just
correct.
You're just out there living your life, doing things.
Yeah,
Are you a billionaire? Let me ask you this. Are you a billionaire? Do you come from a billionaire family?
No. We kind of joked before the show started, but I'm 6 days to the first, and I'm still figuring out how I'm going to pay my rent. I'm certainly not a billionaire. I am very lucky compared to many people, and I actually use this as a kind of a metric. So my dad was a doctor. We lived a middle class lifestyle in a nice neighborhood. We weren't rich, and we never had to worry about having a roof over our head or had to worry about food on the table.
Solid middle class.
Yeah, we're middle upper class. Like, again, we weren't super wealthy, and I mention that because when I look at what's going on now, like I'm joking about paying rent, like I'm not really joking. Like I'm just a normal guy. I work paycheck to paycheck. I own a software and video game company, but everybody else that I work with is also an owner in the company. So it's like a shared business that we all work towards. But there's some times when money is really, really tight. We happen to be in one of those times now, largely, I think, because of the economic issues that are going on. Strangely enough, I noticed this the first time that President Trump got into office, that a lot of our clients, because we work with a lot of clients that are in healthcare and education, and they just seize up because they're just all the federal funding is drying up. They're not sure if they're going to be able to get reimbursed for things. They stop spending money on dev and design kind of stuff. But no, I'm just a normal guy. No aspirations for office. I always joke like I'm an introvert at heart. So sitting on the couch with my dog and my cat, watching TV or hanging out with friends, playing video games, like that sounds great to me. I never
Yes,
wanted
me
to.
too.
I,
And if I can just put a pin in this, I think the introverts can literally change the world because
Sure.
we've been sitting on the couch watching everybody. We've been analyzing it. I was so shy that throughout elementary school, high school, I rarely spoke. The only time I would actually speak in school is because I'm high IQ and I often wanted to answer the questions in class. And it was literally like it caused me physical pain to just raise my hand in class and give the correct answer to the question that nobody else was getting. I was so shy, painfully shy.
Me too.
And I think that sometimes that shyness prevents people from wanting to, say, run for office or start a YouTube channel and a movement and all the things that I'm doing. There's not a time that I don't turn on my camera and click on my microphone that my hands aren't shaking. But just like you, we've been sitting back, we've been watching, we have things to say. So don't let your shyness, don't let your introversion, don't let the fact that you are a type B personality keep you from getting out there and making a change. Like that's really inspiring. And the conversations
Absolutely.
we've had, I absolutely get that from you. Like you don't seem like a guy who's like, hey, I want a microphone. I want to be out here in front of people. I just want attention. You're not a pick me type of guy. You're a just sit back and live your life type of person.
It's kind of funny because it's sort of against the grain, I guess, as far as politicians go. I've been at events where if somebody's like, hey, why don't you say something? Like, I'm happy to say something, but I'm also just happy if somebody else wants the floor, like, I don't care. I'm fine just sitting in a corner talking to people one-on-one. Obviously, by the nature of what I'm getting at, I need to be sort of out there, but I also...
And you can be. You're smart,
I think we've entered a new world.
You're confident. You can be out there. We've entered a new world. How?
That I think the conversations are going on. So, for example, Ohio's a big state. People don't realize this. We have 88 counties here. And one of my goals is to visit every county during this election cycle physically at least once, and then try to do one more event digitally or whatever. And I want to be there. I want to be on the ground talking to people. But the reality is that is not the most efficient way to get in front of people. The most efficient way in the world we live in now is interviews and podcasts, because I can do a 1-hour podcast with someone like you, and I can get in front of tens or hundreds of thousands of people. I go drive 2.5 hours to a county in Ohio and I meet with a group of 30 people. We're going to have a great conversation, but like pound for pound, that's not going to give me the sort of name recognition I would need to win an election. So I'm always bouncing back and forth. And what I've been telling my team, and just real fast about the shyness thing, one of the things I tell my students all the time is that public speaking is a skill. It's not something that's inherent to you. Now, you may not be like my ex-wife she is a social butterfly. She will go and talk to people all day long. We go to a party and she'll be bouncing around, chatting with people. I'll have a drink in a corner talking to 1 or 2 people. But you can build the skill set to be a good public speaker. It takes time, experience. And I've spoken in front of so many people. I've done 2 TEDx talks. I've talked in front of thousands of folks. I've talked in front of dozens of folks. Like,
what were your TEDx talks about? And we will be putting those links in the description. What was the topic of your 2 TEDx talks?
Oh, sure. So the first one I ever did was about this app idea that we were kind of building.
Okay, so technology based.
Yeah, it was a technology. And then the second one I did was about the video games industry and about how I was comparing it to rock and roll, and that the video game industry is an industry where it's sort of on the cusp of how rock and roll was in like the late 50s to mid 60s.
How so?
So if you think about the time, think about Elvis Presley, right? Like rock and roll.
Yeah, my dad was a huge Elvis fan, and I'm old. So I listened to Elvis music growing up because he was like not that far gone. And that was all my dad ever listened to was Elvis Presley.
That's interesting because a lot of folks viewed Elvis as this sort of doorway into degeneracy with this rock and roll music.
My dad was a degenerate. He joined the church when he was about 33 years old, was when he got baptized as a Mormon. So
okay.
He grew up as a rebel and he loved him.
And he kept
Elvis. So yeah.
Yeah. But I think video games are one of those things where, so the video game industry is the largest entertainment industry in the world. It's bigger than music and movies combined times 2. It is tech driven.
What?
It's at the Yeah, video game industry is gigantic. Like it blows. Like people will talk. I'll have conversations. People talk about sports and how sports is a big industry. I was like, sports isn't anything compared to the video game. It's like the little baby cousin. If you're just, I'm just talking about revenue here, and most people don't realize that. So a big part of the talk I gave for the TEDx talk was I knew I was going to be in front of a bunch of people that were, and I did this like 10 years ago, so I was in my mid 30s. Like the people I'm going to be speaking to are going to be like 45 and up. Most are not going to have any familiarity with the video game industry at all.
I've never played a video game since Tetris in college, because I had a little handheld Tetris and Mario Brothers. We had a Nintendo, but we didn't get that until I went to college, because we didn't even have computers at my college. When I went to college in 1992, my 2 years at my Mormon college, my Mormon junior college, before I got married and became a trad wifey, we didn't even have computers. So I hand wrote all of my term papers and stuff. Like I did a 50-page handwritten term paper. There was not a computer in my college. So I've never played computer games ever, or video games, whatever you youngsters are calling them these days. I've never played them.
Youngsters, yeah. Maybe that's something you can dig into here later in your life. There's a lot of great stuff. There's some really fun YouTube and streaming channels of retirees just getting into video games and stuff. So that's what the talk was about. I was like, hey, I was trying to connect something where baby boomers and some Gen X might have some familiarity with something like rock and roll music and Elvis Presley, where they saw something that their parents didn't. Right? Their parents just saw this as like a fad, and rock and roll is not real music. Whereas younger people are just like, no, video games are a thing. They are an art form, and they are capable of doing some pretty amazing, creating some amazing experiences. And so that was the gist of that. So they're both on YouTube. You can find them.
Okay, we'll put the link in the description. So we're not going to find them. We're going to put the link in the description so that people can go find those TEDx talks. So we've been in healthcare, we've been in video games, we're teaching school and
art, photography. Yep. I'm all over the place.
You are currently actually engaging in one of the things that I am calling for followers of my denim revolution to engage in, and that's running for office. Now, I have never been politically active in my life because I was so busy being like this little Mormon stay-at-home mommy. And I just didn't care, because I felt like Jesus was going to take care of politics. So it didn't matter, because everything was in God's hand. You know, he holds the whole world in his hand. So I wasn't that worried about politics, because I knew that God had a plan and that we were just all living out this, we were on the track that God wanted us to be on. So it didn't matter to me. And then I left the Mormon church. 2 years ago, I broke up with Jesus. I'm now an atheist, and looking around at the world and thinking, oh, crap, there's no divine being up there holding everything up. We're not living out his plan. Maybe it's up to us. That moment made me politically engage. And it's kind of embarrassing. I talk about politics all the time now, because for the first time, I just decided I'm going to overcome my lack of education. I didn't have an education. I got married and I was a mom. I spent my entire adult life changing diapers and baking sourdough bread. And education was not only not encouraged, it was discouraged. Nobody wanted an educated housewife. If I was too educated, I was going to rebel and leave the church, and eventually I would.
I mean, it sounds like they might have been right.
They were 100% right. 100% right. So I've been really
Can I jump in real fast?
Yeah.
Because I think that's an important point, and I don't mean this in any negative sense, but I've always held the belief from even when I was a little kid, which I think my parents instilled on me. So the Volpe family motto has always been knowledge is no weight to carry. And so by that, it's learning things is never a burden to you, right? The more you can educate yourself, the more you can know about the world you live in, the better. And the other side of that coin is that whatever you think, believe, exert, whatever, you should be able to have a conversation about and defend based on learning. And so I've always found, no shade to your upbringing or whatever, I don't mean anything by this, but I've always just had a hesitancy about people that find, if you want to call it power or uncomfortability or whatever word you want to use, with having people that are educated in their sphere. I've always been someone that wants to be surrounded by people that are better than me at things so that I can learn from them and I can grow from them.
Chris, my full-time job is throwing shade on my past. That's what I do for a living. So, so no hate. But yeah, because of my past, I don't have an education and I've never felt confident even discussing politics. I wouldn't
Mhm.
felt confident even to reach out to you and reply to your email and say, "Hey, let's have a conversation, Mr. Highly educated person who's running for Senate." But I realized just after breaking up with Jesus and then breaking up with MAGA, I realized that my education may not, like, I may never have a degree. I may never have, all of that actual
Sure.
college education, but my education inside of the Mormon church and my extremely conservative, very pious, alt right, Christian nationalist, white supremacist, prepping family and community is a form of education that a lot of people don't have. You can't go to college and learn the stuff that I learned. So I have started myself going to like school board meetings with a group called Secular Arizona. And I've been doing some rallies. Like now I have all of my Congress people's and the local mayor's emails served in my contacts or saved in my contacts. And I've learned how to write a quick and concise and powerful letter to my representatives and ask them to do specifically the things that, as your constituent, here are some of the actions
Mhm.
that I'm requesting from you. That's something that I've never done before in my life. And now I'm so politically active that every single day I'm waking up and looking for responses from some of these groups that I'm part of, checking to see on my calendar when the next protest is, what we're doing next. And I have launched the Denim Revolution. So I'm not somebody who has that education, that background that you do. And I'm able to get involved now in politics for the very first time in my way. I'll never run for office, but I shouldn't run for office. I can't organize anything the way that you do. I'm not about systems, I'm about fluff, but fluff and
Well,
passion.
I don't know if that's true, but I'm with you. And I'm someone that believes like I highly believe in education and I think that college is important. But I also am someone that I there's nothing that you can learn in college that you cannot learn outside of college. The question is, are you going to do it? Because at college, it sort of forces you, it provides you all this information so you don't have to go look for it yourself, which
You're
saves you
getting
a ton of
graded.
time. Yeah. And then it forces you to do work. And you are now, you have a face to face interaction with an expert, which allows you, they'll push, a good teacher is going to be pushing on you to critically think not just what the answer is. And this is one, if I can go on my little soapbox rant for 1
You
second.
sound like a teacher. I
I
love
know.
this.
I know. So there's a lot. We don't need to dig into this, but there's a lot of anti-intellectual and education stuff going in Ohio
Oh,
right now.
absolutely. Everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we just signed a House bill which restricts what you can teach. It's wild. The point here is that when you are engaging with somebody who is an expert in their field, they are going to force you to think about something from a variety of angles. And college is not a place that you go to just to know facts. It's to understand how you got to the facts, right? How you got to this information. So I always tell people when I'm having conversations, whether it's political or otherwise, like I care less about what you think and more about why you think it. Because I've got friends that like I agree with on the quote unquote answer, but their pathway that they got there, I find very sort of illogical or weird. And I think that the purpose of education is understanding how to learn. That is what college teaches you. And one of my big gripes right now is that I think college is it's looked at as like this hoity-toity intellectual liberal whatever thing. But
They
there's
can't be.
yeah, but I think there's two parts to it. One is that remember, college is not a job training program. Like that's not what it's supposed to be, right? So that's the first thing.
What is it
Um,
supposed to be?
it's supposed to be a place where you can go and experience new things, be introduced to new ideas, become more worldly about what's going on. And while you're doing that, you're also
Worldly
learning
is a
about,
bad word to Christians.
well, I'm I'm telling you where I'm
More
coming from. I can't
more
speak for them.
engaged, more linked in to this earth that we're living on.
Yeah, just understanding what's going on and being presented new aspects and elements of that world so that you can think about them and have conversations about them. And then the other thing that I always point out, and this is my eye rolly when people talk about this stuff, is indoctrination. I went to a college and I got liberally indoctrinated. What they're really telling you as a student is that they think you're an idiot, that they think you are unable to look at information and facts, and you are unable to put these things together in a critically thinking way, and that you're just some like sponge that's going to absorb whatever your teacher tells you, both a student for a long time and a teacher, I find incredibly insulting. And it's also just not true. Like, hang around in a faculty meeting sometime with professors, and I guarantee you they're not sitting around talking about how to indoctrinate your children. They can barely agree on when like a lunchtime should be. Like, it's just a group of people that are experts in their fields that are trying to do the best they can for their students. There's no mass cabal of teachers trying to, change your students into whatever. It's the whole thing's just kind of ridiculous.
It's so funny that you put it like that. Okay. When was the moment? What's the story? I want you to paint the picture of when educator Chris, video game Chris, decided, now I'm going to put my hat into this race. And will you tell us about specifically what you're running for?
Sure. The way I tell the story is, I think it's sort of similar when you and I talked about you leaving Mormonism and leaving your husband and whatnot. But for me, it was
clear. Jake cheated on me and almost ended my life. So I get a lot of religious people who are like, well, that's why, everything in your life is wrong because you left your husband. I did leave my abusive husband, who that night picked up a 19-year-old prostitute and ended our marriage. So
yeah. Well, from my perspective, from whatever it's worth, I think that it was courageous and brave on your end. And so
thank you.
Whoever says that, like,
I get a lot of flack. Yeah.
Yeah. Really? On the internet these days? I don't believe it. So my sort of political story started, I was never super engaged in politics. I always kind of kept an ear open, just kind of understanding what's going on. Because I think in order to be a good voter, you have to be knowledgeable on the issues. You don't have to know like every little thing under the sun, but you need to be knowledgeable on the issues. So I've always been relatively on the ball, I guess, but never wanted to be in politics, never wanted to be a politician. I really have ramped up my understanding of the political world, to be honest, since Donald Trump became president the first time, where I found it. I'm somebody who wants to understand what is going on. And that's back to the systems sort of thinking. Like, I need to understand if this is this, and then you build on top of that. And when Trump came down that escalator, like ever since that day, it's just been this like cacophony of nonsense BS. I don't know if we can swear on the show or not, but
go ahead. Just let me give the disclaimer. Grandmas in England who don't like me to cuss, we're gonna have a little bit of cussing. So now you go ahead.
Okay. It was
so just bullshit out of Trump.
Yeah. And what I noticed is, as somebody who is relatively on the ball with a lot of these topics, even I would have to spend time deconstructing his nonsense in order to even be able to have a conversation about it. So I could see how other people who maybe aren't as knowledgeable on something like healthcare or whatever, to even be able to discern the fact from the fiction, right?
I was voting for Trump on a vibe, because I did vote for Trump first election. Now, this last time around, I was already off of the MAGA train, so I am 2 years ex-MAGA. I have a lot of people in my comments who are like, Jenny, this was because of you. No, I didn't vote for Trump this time. I voted for Kamala, and that was a really emotional thing for me, to go into a voting booth and vote for a woman, and a woman who's not MAGA and who isn't Donald Trump. So that was a big deal. That was momentous, and my hands were shaking. And I took a bunch of pictures, and it's like, wow, look what I did. So yeah, I voted for Trump the first time around, and I don't know anything about politics. Here's what I knew. I knew that my pastor and everybody in my community was voting for Trump, and that he was saying that he was going to make America great again. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything about how he was getting there. He was just really enthusiastic. I voted for him on vibes. Yeah. I think he's smarter than we realize. I think that there's a lot more strategy, and that dumb and dementia thing, I think that that's in many ways an act, because certainly he couldn't get to where he is today and be implementing the plan that he is if he wasn't smarter than we think he is.
Possibly.
We didn't know. Yeah.
My take on it, for whatever it's worth, is that I think he is. No, I don't think it's luck. I think part of it's luck. Simply being born into a super wealthy family is luck in and of itself. I think he is someone that understands us as human creatures on a emotional level, like an intrinsic level. And I think he is able to take advantage of that and convince people to kind of not only vote against their interests, but act against their better angels. And this is coming from,
Narcissists.
yeah, I mean, I also
Narcissists are master manipulators, and he does present as a narcissist. I am not Donald Trump's psychologist. I would love to be, but I'm not. But those narcissists, they have a way of energizing and manipulating people.
I look at things a little bit. I try to think of things as simply as I can, right? And I think that when you look at someone like Mr. Trump, I think he is a con man. And when you're dealing with con men, one of the key things that they do is that they try to create chaos and confusion. Because if they can do that, then while everybody is circling around in this tornado trying to figure out what's true and what's not, and I mean, is he a narcissist? Is he not a narcissist? Like, none of that really matters. But while we're all in this state of confusion, then he can maneuver throughout the situation as he needs to, because the rest of us are spinning around in circles. What allows him to do that is the fact that he has an extreme amount of wealth and power and influence. So the repercussions to normal folks like us to do the stuff that he's doing would most likely us be in jail. He doesn't have to worry about that. And then the second thing is that he can utilize, just listen to the patterns of the way he speaks. He, in essence, says nothing when he talks, but it gives you something to grab onto. So out of the 20 nonsense things he says, you only need to personally feel like you need to grab onto one thing, and then you'll just brush the rest aside. And then if he can keep doing that, then eventually it gets enough folks where you're just like, well, I believe him on this thing, and I'm willing to forgive him on the rest of this stuff. I don't think that our leaders should be functioning in a world where they just say a bunch of stuff and then occasionally something happens to be true, and then that's good enough for the other 20 things that are causing chaos and disorder. And we're seeing that right now in the business world. Like, businesses are afraid to make long-term decisions because the uncertainty around the economy, tariffs, retribution. You just can't run a business in this environment.
I did a video recently where I say that Donald Trump is the Wizard of DC, and it's all smoke and mirrors. And
absolutely,
I think that that's what a lot of people. So that's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, look over there so that I can make the lady disappear over here, and little puff of smoke so I can pull the rabbit out of the hat. And I think that what just went down with Charlie Kirk, and I hate to keep giving Charlie Kirk any spotlight, and I hate to give Erica Kirk any more airtime, but let's just go there for a second. I think that what happened with Charlie Kirk is a perfect example of this smoke and mirrors. Charlie Kirk should have been a tragedy. We should have all talked about gun violence and, how sad this is and just the bigger pictures. But the magician, the Wizard of DC, I don't want to call him the Grand Wizard. That would be a KKK thing, and that's not what I'm saying. But the Wizard of, that's not what I'm not saying. But the Wizard of DC is like, oh, good. Like, Congress is just voting not to release the Epstein files today, but I don't want this to be a big backlash. So let me just jump on this tragedy and exploit the hell out of it. I'm down here in Phoenix, and I saw the faces of some of the people coming out because we were at a restaurant not too far away from the Charlie Kirk funeral here. And I saw these people marching in, and let me tell you, the look in their eyes, they looked shaken. I maybe I'm projecting some of this. They looked brainwashed. And this was an exploitation of a situation that should not have been exploited. But he's really good at that. He's really good at smoke and mirrors and let's take the eye off of the prize over here, and we're going to poof over there and stuff that rabbit back in the hat.
Well, that goes into one of the other parts of the Trump is a con man, which is he does not care about you. He just does not. He does not care about you. So he will use any situation, any controversy to move in the direction that he wants. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. At the end of the day, I'm just a dude sitting in a computer talking over the internet, right? So take this for whatever it's worth. But I think Donald Trump is a purely id machine. He is a purely emotional machine. And he, because of his power, his influence, and his money, he is able to act in a way that any other person society would have put in place. Like when you're a little kid and you act up in a kindergarten room, your teacher will tell you to do something or punish you in some way, or they will correct you. Society has this self-correcting mechanism for good behavior that he has not had to go through because he has been able to avoid all of these situations.
Well, people are enabling the behavior because he tells us that we're going to get something out of it.
Yeah. Well, that's the even worse part of
my
this
egoic
situation.
expression and, leaning into my id. Yeah. I think that's a really great way to describe him. He's, he's just all id.
Yeah, I do not think he has a grand plan. I think he understands how to manipulate and navigate people's emotional threads. That does not mean that's not dangerous. And there are people around him very clearly do have a plan. I mean, I forget. I can't remember. There's like the website. It's like the Project 2025 checklist. I forget what it's called, but it's like, here's all the things they told you they were going to do in Project 2025, and here's all the things they have done thus far. Like, it's very clearly spelled out. But the key to remember, again, is that Donald Trump does not give a shit about any of that stuff.
So I would actually argue, if I can just argue really quick, sorry to interrupt you there. Please. I don't think that he just doesn't care about us or doesn't give a shit. I think he does give a shit and he hates us. And I'm not a psychiatrist either, but I was married for 24 years to a man who was just a little junior version of Donald Trump, narcissistic personality disorder, among other things. And I remember always feeling as his wife that he didn't care about me. Yep. And then towards the end, when the violence was increasing, I said that. Like, I feel like you just don't even care about me or our relationship. And he said, I hate you. Whenever we have conversations like this is what he said in a therapy session one day. He said, I picture us as two roosters in a cockfight with, I don't know what those little things are called that they put on, like the little rooster feet that are like the
little blades.
The little blades, like they put those little blades. That's how he described it. He said, and I feel like you're another rooster flying at me with the little rooster foot bladey things. And he goes, and I literally just want to destroy you. I want you to be a pile of bloody feathers on the floor of the arena. It's an instinct that I cannot overcome and I cannot control. And after that session,
it's a very narcissistic behavior.
Yeah. After that session, my psychologist said, my therapist, my trauma and abuse therapist said this relationship is absolutely not safe. He's not safe. And this is textbook. This is textbook.
Yeah.
I don't think that Donald Trump doesn't care about us. I think that he sees any of us that are not in his in crowd. So, liberals, Democrats, cat ladies, probably people like me, people like you, anybody who is ultra blue or whatever, anybody who says you're not the greatest thing. If we don't bow down to Donald Trump, not only does he not care about us, but he sees us as that other little rooster in the ring with the little bladey things on his feet, that we are opposing him and we're coming after him. He hates us. We are his enemies. It wouldn't be as big of a threat if he just didn't care about us.
Well, if you want to take a little piece of current history to back up your claim, just look at his comments about Joe Biden the other day. And actually I think at the Charlie Kirk thing, he mentioned, about the people that are against him, he hates them. I mean, word for word, he said that. So
I got a death threat in a DM yesterday. The individual just word for word quoted Donald Trump. And you're vile, you're a vermin. And he was quoting some of the stuff that Trump said at Charlie Kirk's funeral to me.
Sure.
And then told me that him and his gang of people were going to come and pull me out into the streets and break me. So I'm getting hate. And now they're
sorry that you have to go through that. Yeah.
But it makes me laugh. Like, Donald Trump is inciting a riot. And I don't think that this is any longer a political thing either. I don't think that this is a Republican versus Democrat thing. We are all humans who actually have so much more in common than anybody realizes. Like, some of my friends, some of the people that I do business with are church-going MAGA followers, and we have almost everything in common except for a little bit of ideology. But none of us have anything in common with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he's almost like this great triangulator of the country. I don't hate Republicans. I don't even hate MAGA.
He's a focuser of anger is what he's able to do.
That's good.
You can have that. You can trademark that. Yeah, he's just a lens that's capable of focusing that. And I think I said it when we talked last time, but there are folks on the right, MAGA folks, that have legitimate grievances and concerns about their life, their government, the economy. And neither the Republicans nor the Democrats were acknowledging or helping in any way. You look at Ohio, we have Appalachia, we've got, areas in the Rust Belt that are just economically depressed like you wouldn't believe, and then you add on opiates on top of that and fentanyl and things, and they're just like these really, really bad areas where people feel like they can't get out of this situation. And neither party was listening to them. He was able to take that anger and refocus it in a direction that helped him. And unfortunately is not helping other people. And the one thing I say is Mr. Senator man here is like, the only thing I care about, the only thing I'm trying to do is to find out what folks need and then to advocate to make your and my life better, all of our lives better. Like, that's my only responsibility, is to understand what the needs are and then to fight for those.
It's not to fight against the Republicans and make sure that your party stays in power and that you rule and reign in Ohio forever. It's not your primary objective every day. That's not why you're spending extra time running for office.
No, it is not.
Nope.
I'm not fighting against anyone. The only people I'm quote unquote fighting against is people that I feel are actively trying to hurt other folks. But even in that case, I mean, you mentioned people are always like, we're a lot more similar than we are, some variant of that phrase, right? We're a lot more similar than we are different. All the research shows that on every major issue, Americans believe roughly the same things, including the controversial ones like abortion. And so we are actually all in line with certain things. There's a lot of interesting conversations. Let's use abortion here for a second as an example. The vast majority of pro-life people are actually pro-choice. It's just they have to make it sort of past that mental point of realizing like, oh no, there actually is a line in which I think abortion is okay. And you'll hear that time and time again in conversations where people are like, I am absolutely pro-life in every situation, no abortions ever for anything. But then after about 5 minutes of talking to them, then they're like, oh, well, no, in that instance, I think we should allow abortions, or in this instance, we should allow. So then you are pro-choice. It's just
I'm very pro-choice, but there is a line at which I believe that an abortion isn't warranted and isn't compassionate anymore. Like, I don't believe in late-term abortions. I don't believe in specific methods of abortion. Yeah, I agree. I think that line is probably closer than we realize. It's one of those, it's a yes or no question on your final exam. Yes or no, when really there should be A, B, C, and D, all of the above, or E, some of the above.
Yeah. So these are complex. I didn't mean to step into the abortion conversation. I just sort of used it as an example so we can pivot away.
But it is an example of a very polarizing issue. So let's just stay here for a minute. And again, I don't want to offend anybody. I stay away from talking about abortion myself. I don't often share my views on abortion, but I certainly am an ultra feminist, and I believe that a woman should have that final decision, period. Every woman should have access to abortion, period. That should be the law. But okay. I personally would only have abortions in certain situations, and I never have. But I think that there is a line past which I would not cross. Abortion is such a polarizing issue. The verbiage around it is such a polarizing issue.
Absolutely.
IUDs, or even I've heard people talk about that as murder, because an embryo can fertilize and then you're still murdering human life. I think that the verbiage around it is very charged. And if we could get past that, if we can go from choice A or choice B, yes, check yes or no, to being more nuanced in our approach to it, then we could see the similarities. There's so many issues like that where we look like we're so polarized on the surface because the leaders need us to be polarized so that we will vote for them. Like, this guy represents my absolute feelings on this, and that guy doesn't. They want us, the people in power want us to check yes or no.
It makes the marketing message a lot simpler, right? When you've got red and blue, then you can distill that down into whatever, and then you just can market the message. A lot of these issues are just a sort of trickle down reflection of a two-party system. And I think that's problematic. But yeah, I think you are, I mean, you're more or less correct. One of the things that I always say on any issue is that the world is a complex place. Like, this sounds a little whatever. Again, don't mean anything by it, but it's sort of like the Mike Tyson quote about you can have a plan until you get punched in the face. That's how a lot of these issues are, which is, yeah, you can have your feelings about issues such as abortion all you want. And there's nothing wrong. Like, you are entitled to your feelings and your beliefs. But then the world steps in and punches you in the face, and you have to make a decision. So you can be as anti-abortion as you would like, but at some point, somebody is going to have an ectopic pregnancy. And at that point, you need to have a nuanced conversation on what to do, because if you have an ectopic pregnancy, the mom is going to die and the baby will be unviable. So if you are somebody that believes in no abortions ever for any reason, then you also have to be comfortable with understanding that that mom is going to die. And most people are not comfortable with that. So they're like, okay, let's begin to have a conversation about this specific medical thing. And this stuff's super complicated, right? And it changes. The understanding of fetal viability changes as we understand the human body and processes better. And so it's not something you can boil down into a yes, no, A, B checkbox, right?
Right. And I'm pro-life, so I don't really wish that we had guns or the military or the death penalty. So I'm pro-life.
I don't think we should have
in
the
other
death penalty
ways.
either.
I think the death penalty should cease to exist. But
Yeah. And I think the death penalty is really interesting. I'll just throw this out there. It's not something like a hardcore running on, but I agree. I don't think we should have the death penalty. I am pro-choice, but I don't think we should have the death penalty. One is, all the research shows it is not a deterrent. The vast majority of violent crimes that occur, whether it's with a gun or a weapon or whatever, are what are called crimes of passion. And they are crimes that happen spur of the moment. You know, emotions get high, something happens, and violence or death occurs. They are not these long-standing, premeditated, planned events, right?
like the Jeffrey Dahmers and the psychopaths that we want to make sure that they never get back into society again, because they will harm people in really horrifying ways.
Yeah. The vast majority of violent crime just happens spur of the moment like this. And it's not something where a person's going to be like, oh, let me think about the death penalty before I go ahead and shoot you or stab you or whatever. Like, it's somebody late at night, been drinking too much, getting their emotions rised up, and they end up doing something that they shouldn't be
Oh,
doing.
interesting. So it's in no way a deterrent. It's
So it's
not
not-
reducing
so-
crime.
Yeah, one, it's not a deterrent. And the research shows that. But the second thing is, I totally enjoy this conversation, because I don't know if there's a right or wrong on this, but just from my perspective, I feel like the death penalty is one of those things that if you're going to implement, then you sure as shit need to make sure you're doing it 100% right. Because the second we send somebody who is innocent to the death chamber, then us as a society and us as people have committed murder. And so if it's not a deterrent, and we know for a fact that we cannot implement the death penalty 100% accurately, then in my opinion, let's just not even have it.
Chris, I feel like we could talk for hours, and I wish that I could just speed dial every morning and talk to you and ask for your ideas on things, because you're a thinker. You are, like you said,
Oh,
a guy
well, thank
that
you.
sits back and watches the world go by, and you're an educator and a systems builder. So your brain is wired in a certain way. And I think that that's perfect for politics. You have a lot of really well thought out ideas on politics and policies and society and the way the world works on a big level, and just your little neighborhood there in Ohio. I'd like to double back to what got you into your current state of running for office. And
Sure.
will you remind us again what you're running for?
Yeah, so I'm running for U.S. Senate in Ohio. So right now, Ohio's interesting, and this is actually why I kind of got into it. So in February of this year, I was sitting around looking at the world and not liking the way it was going. And as I mentioned, I was just like, you know what? I want to be an active participant in the life that I live and making the world a better place. And I was like, well, how can I do that? Right? It's literally, and it's cold outside. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm watching the news. I was like, well, how do I get involved? So I guess, I've been quote unquote activated or whatever. And I was trying to think about, okay, what are ways that I think I can be involved? What are my skill sets? What am I good at? And it sort of hit me. I was like, we actually have a special election coming up in Ohio, because our senator was JD Vance, who is now the vice president.
Wait. Hold on. So
I'm
you were
holding
in
on.
JD Vance's. I didn't know that. You're in
Yeah,
JD Vance's former
this will,
district?
well, this will be so it's all of Ohio. So every district is, since it's a
Okay.
federal position. Yeah, this is JD Vance's seat.
I didn't know
Did I just blow
that.
your mind? I blow your
I
mind,
didn't
Grace?
know that. And also, just to my credit, I have enjoyed getting to know you and really excited and enthusiastic for you to run and hopefully be successful in getting that seat, not knowing that it was JD Vance's seat. So,
Yep. So,
wow,
well,
I did not know that.
yeah, the way it works is, so Senate is a 6-year term. He was elected senator and then became vice president, so he had to give up the seat. So he was in it for 2 years, and then the way it works is that the governor gets to appoint somebody, and our governor DeWine appointed John Husted for 2 years, and then the remaining 2 years are up, and that's what this election is for. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. There's a 2-year special election happening 2026. If there was ever a time for a weirdo like me to get elected Senate, I feel like now is that time. I'm very good at talking to people. I'm good at having conversations with a vast majority of different perspectives and whatnot. And I'm exceptionally good at organization. I'm just good at promoting ideas and conversations. I also have a really amazing team. I've built a video game industry and community here of over 10,000 people. And I was like, so it seems like I'm pretty good at bringing people together. I have worked with the same folks more or less for over a decade. People like me, they respect me. Why don't I kind of poke around at this and see what it's like? And again, never run for office, have no idea how to file any FEC paperwork, have no idea how to run for Senate. And I just started doing some research, trying to figure it out. And I spent a couple of months where I was like, what I'm going to do is sort of like you want to call it like a listening tour. One of the things that I know is that Democrats have a tendency to be perceived as very like lectury and hand wavy. I was like, well, instead of going around and talking about what I think and whatever, why don't I just go around and talk to people? So I created the sign. It says, "What's on your mind? Come and chat." And I went to protests. I went to different community events, and I would just set up the sign. I'd have some water and snacks, and people would just come up to me and be like, "What's on your mind? You know, what are your concerns?" And I would just talk to
This is
folks.
where your listening skills and being that type A, sitting on the couch, watching and observing and soaking up the world really comes into play, because you're literally just taking your couch out there and
Yep.
sitting down and listening to people. I never feel like any politicians listen to me. I just don't. They don't listen. They don't care.
Most people don't, and it's usually because
Some
they
do.
aren't. Yeah, some do. But so yeah, that's just what I did. I did that for a couple months, and then in June, I was like, you know what, screw it. Let's just apply. Let's do the FEC paperwork. I filed it, became an official candidate. I believe there was another woman who filed before me, but I was the earliest active Democratic candidate in the Senate, to my knowledge. And I just started doing it. And ever since then, I've been reaching out to folks, trying to go to events, to just learn what's going on in people's worlds and how I can fight and advocate for them. And at the end of the day, I like I said, I just want to make this state and this country better, because I'm going to live in it for the next 30 years. And what is going on right now, I find unacceptable.
And
So
you're
here I
actually
am.
doing something about it. Okay, so Chris, I have so many questions, but the first one that comes to mind is, what were people saying? So you have a big sign, come talk to me, tell me stuff. What did you hear from the people of Ohio?
Yeah, the first one is probably not a surprise. What's on your mind? Come and chat. What's on your mind? And their response is everything. That's the number one response I get, is just everything. I was like, I hear you. I hear you. What can we talk about? And obviously, depending on the audience that I speak to, it varies a little bit. People are exhausted and scared, and they don't like the way the world is going. And they think that if they don't step up and do something, that the America that they know as an idea is going to be gone. And they're not quite sure what to do. That's another big thing, is people, like, want to be active. They want to be engaged. They're not sure what to do. And some of this really surprised me. If you were to ask me, what do you think that the top issues are for Democrats or lefties or center left people, what would those top issues be? You'd probably think the usual suspects, right? Like trans rights, Israel, Palestine, those kind of things. And I do hear about those things. But that's not really what people are saying to me, particularly younger people, interestingly enough, people are saying, and to be honest, they're like, can we start winning fucking elections? Can we start stepping up and taking care of people? And can we not get caught in a 30-day conversation every time somebody mentions trans or something? So what I'm seeing is a lot of folks are like, can we start banding together and winning elections instead of getting caught in these, what some people might call purity tests or whatever? And I found that a very interesting response, because I don't know if that's always been the case. And again, this is just my gut, again, because I'm not a long running politician.
Right.
It does seem to me that a lot of people are ready to take on these issues and start working to make things better, but a lot of them aren't quite sure where to get started. And you ask me what sort of the crystallizing thing is. And if you were to boil it down to its simplest thing, I think that I could not find somebody who was going to be out there creating a vision of what our future could look like and showing us how to get there. There was no candidate in Ohio. There's no candidate on the national stage that can show us, like, what does America look like in 20 years if we go with a Democrat?
I just want to say that I think I've done 20 videos on that exact point. I don't know if you've seen any
really?
of them, but yeah, because Donald Trump, that's where he got me. He walked in and he's like, make America great again. And I can remember my TV being on and hearing him say that for the first time. And I started to cry. And immediately what popped into my head was the Norman Rockwell picture on my calendar of like the Thanksgiving dinner, you know, like Americana. That's what he conjured for me. I thought, make America great again. Let's go back to those simple days when we weren't worried so much, when we could just kind of slow down and raise babies and enjoy our families and live a good life and have retirement and all those things. That's what that meant.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And I have to say that would be amazing. I have to say that what you're talking about is all of the things that are bothering me as someone who's only been part of the Democratic Party for 2 years. So I'm so excited to leave MAGA. I come over to the Democrats and we have Joe Biden, who looks like his embalmer just didn't do a good enough job for the first debate. And I'm panicking. I'm like, I'm a first-time Democrat. And I'm sorry, that's not very nice. I love Joe Biden, and I think that he did an amazing job at the things that he did.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But this is what we have. And he wasn't really painting a picture of a tomorrow. And Kamala focused more on giving us back abortion rights and giving us back gay and trans rights than she did. She in no way, to me, as somebody who, like, I'm on her side, right? I went in the booth and I checked the little box next to her name. I'm on her side. And I didn't get a picture of anything that she was going to build in our future at all. And my granddad had this saying that was putting the cart in front of the horse. You can't put the cart in front of the horse. That's what I feel about abortion rights and trans rights. I don't think, because that's what Kamala, every talking point that I heard always came back to trans and abortion. We're going to get back abortions rights. We're going to make sure that we protect trans rights. Well, first of all, we have to have that horse that's out there winning the elections. We have to fix the economy. We have to make sure that we are stabilizing our position in the world. Those foreign policies have to be rock solid. We have to, stop some of the horrific things that are happening globally. We have to get back to just the brass tacks, and we have to make sure that that horse is healthy. And then we're in a position where we can make sure that we're protecting every LGBTQ American out there. Then we can really, really focus on women's rights, women's reproductive health. That's important. But we don't even have the horse. The cart is just sitting in the middle of the trail somewhere, and it's, the wheels have fallen off. The wheels have fallen off the damn cart, and we're not getting anywhere. And that's what upsets me about the Democratic Party. So when you reached out and you're like, hey, I have a vision for where I think that America should go. Honestly, I think I've had like 20 senators reach out to me, senators and senatorial candidates now. And some of them do have visions and some of them don't. And I have a vision, and I think a lot of Americans, it's the moms too. Not to take anything away from men or dads, but we moms who are raising the babies and taking care of the kids and trying to keep the home fires burning and all of this stuff. We don't want our kids growing up in this world that we don't even know where it's going. We have a vision for what we want in our homes and in America, and nobody is out there selling a vision. So what's your vision? I
agree.
Where do you see America going? If we vote for Chris to take G.D. Vance Jr.'s old seat in Ohio, if you are elected and your citizens trust you to start to build a better future for America. What does that look like?
Sweet. I could have a hour-long plus conversation about the Democratic Party with you, and I think we could make some interesting clips out of that because I share that. And one of the things that I like to remind people is I use the phrase, I'm running as a Democrat, which as opposed to I am a Democrat, because I do not tie my sense of identity in with a political party. I am running for Senate, which is a job. And within that, I am running as a Democrat for this job, right? But I don't have any loyalty to the Democratic Party, and I don't mean anything like negative by that. I feel like political parties should have loyalty to us as the people, not the other way around. So just something to, I guess, keep in mind as I say things here, because I think a lot of us tend to get stuck in this dichotomy of right, left, Democrat, Republican kind of
Abraham Lincoln, very famously at Gettysburg, said that he saw an America where it was government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that has been the American dream, that just regular people like you who know deeply the lives of regular American people. That's what my denim revolution is all about. It's about the jeans wearing guys, not the red ties and the starched shirts and the suit coats or Hugo Boss suits or whatever it is that they're wearing these days. It's well, but you don't have the tie on, right? Like it's those everyday
No, I don't wear a tie very often. Ever since I left healthcare, I was like, I'm not going to wear a tie unless I have to. I'm not anti-tie. I would prefer to not wear a tie.
But we can sit around and idealize that we should have politicians who know us deeply, who understand what it's like to just be a regular person. Yeah. But most regular people aren't running for politics. And I think that for me, that's one of the big breakdowns. We have this intergenerational wealth and these families that, they've been leading America for so many years, and they're almost like these dynasties. Regular people like you don't often run for office. And I would encourage anyone out there listening to do so.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things I've mentioned before, I said this on an interview maybe a month ago, but I was like, when is the last time that you think that John Husted or even like someone like Sherrod Brown, who's running Democrat, like when's the last time most of these politicians have had to worry about paying their rent or covering their groceries?
Or gone into a McDonald's or, well, I guess President Trump likes McDonald's. How many of these politicians have actually pushed a grocery cart down the aisle of Walmart and seen the price difference? How much soup is this week compared to how much it was 2 weeks ago, and how much bigger your receipt is at the end? Most of them don't have that experience. Most of them maybe never have.
I got shrinkflated on my steak the other week, and I'm definitely noticing the costs of stuff is becoming significantly higher. But going back to your question about what I think the future can look like, and so I'm one of those folks that I am not getting stuck in this like we're going to bring America back thing. Like I think that America, as you and I in our age group kind of lived in it, is gone. It ain't coming back.
The 80s were magical. If you were not a child of the 70s and 80s, you will never know the euphoria that we lived in.
I think the 90s were awesome too. I think the 80s and 90s were awesome. But one of the things that you mentioned too that I want to hit on is like all of this Make America Great Again thing, the 80s and 90s, like all those things are true. The 80s and 90s were amazing. There was so much like interesting things going on, so many creative ideas. But the thing you have to remember is like, not everybody shared that experience. True. There was a lot of people, Black folk, LGBT people, like there was a lot of people, immigrants, who did not have that experience in America. And they were really, really stressed economically, culturally, whatever. So this idea that we're going to go back to like these 50s, glory days or whatever, like there was a significant portion of the country that was not safe and secure in the 50s. And so what I've been kind of saying is like, look, I don't have any interest in going back to this, this world that's supposedly, rose-colored glasses. But what we can do...
So you don't want all the trad wives. You're not trying to have the American family look like it did, with women staying at home and focusing on their families and not getting an education, working on their Mrs. degree. You're not trying to rebuild that everything that we have in the past.
What I'm trying to do is rebuild a world in which people can go and live meaningful lives in the way they want to. And if that what you described is how you would like to live your life and the kind of family and community you want to build, then more power to you. But we need to be operating in a way that provides economic opportunities and freedom to choose your life how you want it to be. And I think that we have seen since World War II, where we did major investments in infrastructure and healthcare, where we really focused on small businesses and education, those systems have been eroded over time by wealthy people and corporations who got theirs and then pulled the ladder up. And now you fast forward 50 years and folks, I'm a first year millennial, born 1981. Folks in my generation and younger are not living in an economy that our parents and grandparents were living in. You can work as hard as you want. I work 5 jobs. I've got 2 master's degrees. Like, you can work as hard as you want, but you cannot overcome the inertia of the removal of all of this infrastructure and support that used to exist. And so I dream of a world where you are able to go and get an education in what you want to get into. And when you walk away, you're not starting out your career with crippling debt. Or when you walk out the door and you know that your family is going to be taken care of if your kids get sick, or you get hit by a bus on the way to your job, that you're going to be able to go to a hospital and you aren't going to walk out with $100,000 in medical debt. I think that we have allowed corporations and the wealthy to structure the systems in society in a way that benefits them. And it is unsustainable. And frankly, I think it's cruel. And it also just doesn't work for creating a long-term, healthy, successful society. Again, back to being a systems person. I'm really big on aligned incentives. And right now, it's like 1 to 10% of us are getting a vast majority of the benefits, and the rest of us are just fighting over scraps. For example, think of something like Amazon or Facebook, right?
I've been boycotting Amazon for 7 years now. I've only had 12 purchases. I'm putting together a little Halloween package for my grandson in Utah, and I go to local vendors. Somebody is literally hand making me a little hat for my son. So I boycott Amazon unless it's absolutely necessary and I can't find it anywhere else.
Sure. So Amazon, giant corporation, amazing things, looking at supply chains. And we use Amazon still for stuff like AWS, Amazon Web Servers, because they're easy to use. And I mean, there really aren't a lot of choices when you're looking at stuff like that.
We have to now. People have to.
Yeah. But here's the thing. There's this mentality that, and I'm speaking now as a business leader and owner, not necessarily just a senator, but there's this idea that like Jeff Bezos kicked in the door and built this giant empire by himself, which obviously isn't true. But Amazon would not exist without the tens of trillions of dollars that have been invested by the government over the past 50 years in infrastructure, roads, bridges, seaports, airports, electricity grid, the internet, safety, both police and military, like business stability, right? You could be the smartest guy in the world, but without a stable society that can provide you these investments, Amazon would not exist. And those didn't just fall out of the sky. Those were policy decisions that we made as people and then used our tax dollars to build. So when you look at something like an Amazon, I do not think it is controversial or unfair to be like, hey, you are the beneficiary of trillions of dollars in infrastructure spending. If we ask you to pay an equitable tax rate so that we can then take that money and reinvest it back into the next generation so that they can have an education, so that they can be safe and healthy, so that they can have access to job opportunities, I do not think that is an unreasonable ask. And I think this idea that we somehow have to kiss the ass of these job creators so that, because we're worried that Amazon's going to leave or whatever, do you know who the job creators are? It's the consumers. We, the people, are the job creators. And the taxpayers are the people that are making all of these things possible. Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Intel, whatever, none of them could exist without the money we spent on DARPANet, right, which eventually became the internet. That was a government project that was funded by taxpayer dollars. And so I look at society, I look at America as like this giant like warehouse, right? And within it, there is tools and opportunities and people that can help you be successful. And if you go and you borrow a drill that lets you go and make money and build this empire, then you should be required to not only bring that drill back, but you should take the money that you built off of that and then reinvest it back in the infrastructure again, so that we can keep building on these things. Now you have aligned incentives. Corporations benefit because they are getting all this infusion through infrastructure building. We as the people benefit because the money from successful companies is being reinvested back into our education and our healthcare and our safety. And then America in general benefits because we can act as a world leader in this case, we're talking about the economy, but I think also culturally, it's very important to keep in mind. So this idea that we should somehow kowtow to these giant billionaires and corporations, I think is just ridiculous, because Elon Musk would be working out of a tool shed without the investments that we made as citizens in this country.
Oh my God. I've never thought about that. I was talking to an economist yesterday, and she was saying how that in the 80s, corporations changed in the way that they give back. That like some of the early business owners, of course, we didn't have corporations in the 1800s, but some of the early business owners, mining companies and things like that, rail companies, they felt like they needed to build houses. They felt like they needed to provide healthcare, as primitive as it was. And there was this feeling that if you were at the top, if you were a business owner, and then when corporations came along, if you were a corporate head, that you had to give back as much as you possibly could because of that, because you had been provided for in so many ways, and your workers and the community around you gave so much. And she said that in the 80s that shifted, and now it no longer exists. Corporations are taking what they can. They're hoarding the resources. They're making all the money that they can. And then they're just walking away, and they're not really giving back. They're giving back to the people they want to give back to, supporting political people who are going to give them power. But there's no longer that feeling of being a caretaker for the community and the people that have put you in that position.
I agree. I think that they're going off a little track. I think that there is a storm of brewing, and I think there's a lot of folks like me who have gotten to the point where, to be blunt, we're just not fucking doing it anymore. Like, we are not letting you take advantage of our good nature.
That should be a t-shirt. Yeah. I need a t-shirt of that. I'm just not fucking doing it anymore.
I think that there's a lot of folks who believe in the American ideals and the American system, and this social contract that has been developed over time where, okay, we work hard, we get the benefits from that. We take care of each other because we are a one country and we're a society that supports each other. We're starting to see these things break down, and they've been breaking. The games industry is actually a very interesting reflection of this. So people that are in the video game industry are in it because they love video games, and these are super talented developers. They could be earning, 2-3 times more in a lot of cases in the corporate world. But they do this because they love video games and they love storytelling and they love creativity. And a lot of us are seeing all these major layoffs that are going on. Xbox just let go almost 10,000 people in June, for example. And a lot of us are just like, to be honest, we're not doing this anymore. We are not going to come in and spend extra time on our nights and weekends helping you out if you're just going to kick us to the curb when the project's done. I have a friend, 3D artist, and she works for this, I won't say the company, but she works for this company, and they started working on a tool set and designed to help create visual assets, 3D models, things like that. And they just finished it, and then she got fired. And now they're going to use the tool set so that the community can build the assets for their platform. So she, in essence, was forced to build her own replacement. And then once it was built, she was fired. And like that kind of crap is happening all the time. And I think there is a storm brewing where folks are just like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to work 9 to 5 because that is what our agreement says. I'm going to put in this amount of hours and this amount of work, and you are going to pay me this amount of money and give me these benefits. And then I'm walking the fuck out and I'm going to go spend time with my family, because nobody wants to spend all this extra time if they just feel like they're going to get tossed aside at some point. There's no pensions anymore. There's been a drastic decrease in the amount of matching that corporations are doing for 401ks. And this goes up to a larger issue, which is the burden of existence is falling more and more on us. So back to college, remember, like there used to be a day where a company would pay you to get trained. And then when you got trained, they would have a job available for you. And then assuming you were capable and competent, you could be at that job for 10, 20, 30 years and then have a pension at the end of it. Now we have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to get that education on the off chance that there might be a job available for us when we're done. And even if we get that job, our benefits are far worse and there's no job security. That is a recipe for a society on the verge of an economic, if not collapse, definitely some sort of economic disaster. And we just cannot keep doing this so that you and I end up with crippling student loan debt and medical debt so some jackass can buy another yacht. Like, it's just not going to work.
I had a medical bankruptcy. I'm trying to think when it was. It was after the 2009 market crash. At age 36, I was diagnosed with an ovarian tumor. And over the next couple of years, I would have just cascading side effects and other things from medications and surgery, etc. I had a near-death experience. I was critically ill, almost
I remember
died.
you telling me about that.
And we didn't have medical insurance. Now, part of that was I had an abusive husband. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was part of a system that said that I just had to grow up and get married and not be able to take care of myself. So part of that was this traditional family system that's been pushed on us. That's a flawed system. It's not even flawed. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's not flawed. It's disgusting, right? So part of that was I didn't have my own money, my own job, so I didn't have insurance. My husband, as a form of financial abuse, didn't believe in that, but he would have believed in it if it had been affordable. We were always self-employed. And I remember getting quotes from time to time on insurance as a self-employed, just little mom and pop shop. And it was astronomical. And then we still would have had tens of thousands of dollars of copays and other things throughout the year. We did not have an affordable avenue to provide health insurance for our family. So from the time I was 20 until after my divorce, when I was homeless and qualified for state insurance, I never had health insurance. I had babies, I paid for it out of pocket. I had surgeries, we paid for everything out of pocket. So during the time that I had the ovarian tumor and the subsequent critical illness, sepsis, et cetera, and long-term hospitalizations, ICU and stuff, we racked up, $500,000 in medical debt and had to file bankruptcy. And that started a series of events that would change my life forever. We lost a home because of that. We had to relocate across the country.
It's abhorrent.
We couldn't even qualify to get a car, just get financed on a car. It took us some time at that point. I know now people have more bankruptcies. We worked our asses off to provide for our family. And yes, we had a good lifestyle. We lived in a beautiful home. We had a good income, but we were not able to provide those things like the medical insurance. And with all of the money that we had, we could not cover. We didn't have $500,000 in the bank. We weren't that type of rich, and we had a huge family and a lot of expenses. And I just think that in the United States of America, it is disgusting that a hardworking family that owns a family business, and we employed between 6 and 10 employees. So there were all of these other families that, because of our business, because of our hard work, were able to provide for themselves and become homeowners and raise kids and vacation and buy themselves a motorcycle and go out to dinner, all with that American dream. They were able to live the American dream because of our family business. And we weren't able to provide health insurance for them. We weren't able to provide health insurance for ourselves, nor retirement and other things like that. Only the CEOs, only the corporations, only those huge businesses truly have the resources to have a healthy life. And for us, there were times where we have a really good income, but if Jake would just go get a job at Costco and reduce our income drastically, then at least we'd have health insurance. Health insurance is such a huge problem. We should have it.
Oh, I mean, we can talk about healthcare all day long. We can talk about the Medicaid spin down and death spirals. We can talk about all that stuff. But I think one of the things you hit on too is that self determination, like if the consequences of choosing are an absolute destruction to your life, like you don't actually have self determination. So people, I think a lot of people are just like, oh, you have the choice. You can go work here or there, or you can go do this or that. But it's like, if I leave my job and I get hurt and I end up with $200,000 in medical debt, like that's not actually a choice, right? It's like, oh, there's a gun to your head. You don't have to do the thing that I say that you're going to do, but if you don't, I'm going to shoot you. That's not a choice. That's not free will. And so it goes back again to what I was saying about earlier, which is what are our goals here as a society, right? Are our goals to create a system in which health insurance companies can make tens of billions of dollars a year? Okay, if that's the goal, we're doing great. If our goal is to make sure that our citizenry is healthy and productive so that they can live meaningful lives and move us towards a cultural and economic powerhouse, then we're doing terribly, right?
Did you see Bernie Sanders' speech yesterday? I never listened to Bernie because I was MAGA, right? And now I listen to Bernie all the time. And it's like, man, who is this guy that I never really listened to before? He was talking about how that now we have two Americas. And these two Americas, the 0.01%, and then all of the rest of us have two completely different goals. The goals of the one is power and wealth and resource hoarding. And the goal of the second America, just us, we're just trying to raise our kids. We're just trying to scrape by.
Survive.
And, we're just trying to survive. And I think that that's the point. And we see the people that we have in the White House right now, and we think that we're all on the same page. We think we're all in this together. We're working towards the same goal of making everyday life good for everybody. But I don't think that that's the case. I think that the people who are very wealthy are trying to make sure that they have the power and that they're able to protect their wealth, and they don't care about the rest of us.
Speaking of some of the things you're talking about, I looked this up the other day because I was kind of curious, because we talk a lot about the national debt and then we don't actually do anything about it, right? Just take a guess. What is the combined net worth of the top 500 people in the United States? Throw a number out.
$17 trillion.
It's not quite that much, but it's over 6 trillion. And that's not the top 1,000 or 5,000 or 500,000. That's the top 500 people have over $6 trillion in net worth right now. So this idea we're not capable of utilizing money for the pretty much everything that you were talking about there, that we can't find the money to provide healthcare, or we can't rebuild our educational system into something that is the envy of the world. It's just ridiculous. It's just
affordable housing.
Yeah, affordable housing. There's actually more housing right now in the United States that is sitting unused than there is homeless people in the United States. We could house everybody in the United States with the homes that are just sitting around doing nothing. We can fix these problems. And one of the things that I would like to say, just maybe pep things up a little bit, is like what we're going through right now, even though the details might be different, this is the same shit that's always been happening with humanity. This is the same stuff that always happens with societies, is that the rich get richer, they stack the deck in their favor, and then the little folks like you and I get to a breaking point where we're like, okay, we're done with this. And I think we are very, very close to that point right now. There's a really interesting TED Talk. I cannot remember the guy's name, but he's like a super wealthy guy. And this was maybe 15 or 20 years ago. And his TED Talk was, he's like, I'm speaking to other wealthy people that we need to start taking better care of society. Because I'm paraphrasing here, because like in essence, if we don't, there are going to be torches and pitchforks at our front gates. So he was almost making a selfish claim to these other rich people that like, if we don't take care of society, it's going to work out poorly for us, because that's what always happens, is that at some point, us little plebes, we rise up and we start taking care of business.
Do you hear the people sing?
Yeah. So I think that there is maybe a breath of fresh air, a relief in that, when you realize like, okay, this issue is not new. The details and the mechanisms of it are different. And there's stuff like social media and misinformation that we kind of have to work through. But that stuff's always been, controlling the press has always been a part of how the powerful control society. So take a breath and realize that as we come together and as we start navigating this, that I have wonderful conversations with Republicans all the time. And you start talking about some of the things you mentioned where it's like, yeah, the billionaires are giving us a raw deal. Like that is not a Democrat or Republican thing. That's just like an American thing where it's like, yeah, normal folks are getting a raw deal and we have been for decades. And so once we start realizing that, that this is less of a right and left war and it's more of a class war, if you want to call it that. I even hate using the term war because I think there is an avenue, there is an off ramp where large corporations and the wealthy can take a step, they can pump the brakes, and they like, okay, we are going to start working on some of these problems with you instead of fighting against you at every step of the way. That's perhaps a little bit optimistic. I think sometimes you do have to light a fire under people, but the kindling is there, and I think some people are rubbing some sticks together. So
I love that.
We might see some flames coming sooner or later, and I don't mean that in a violent way. It's in a metaphorical way.
I've been calling on my audience to engage in a war of toxic empathy because, like, have you heard Charlie Kirk and so many people like, I don't know, there's all kinds of alt-right podcasters that are so down on toxic empathy. And I get that in my comment section all the time, like, oh, toxic empathy. So yeah, I would like to see more toxic empathy. Let's rub some kindling and let's legislate. Let's vote the bastards out. And let's spread toxic empathy like a tsunami across America.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, Chris, I know that you have other things to do today. The burning question in my mind is this. If you are elected to J.D. Vance's former seat, what are two things that you're going to get to work to do? What are two pressing issues that you're going to jump into?
Yeah, great questions. I'm going to sort of answer that in a roundabout way, which is I think we are in obviously a very unique time here, right? Like that's not news. This is an interesting situation because the position I'm running for is a 2-year shortened term. So as you can imagine, 2 years is not a lot of time to get something done, but I am going to go. The one thing I've been promising people is that I'm going to be the biggest pain in the ass to the leadership of both the Republican and the Democratic Party to start making meaningful changes. I am not going to let things go. I have no interest in lobbyist money. I have no interest in corporate money, and I do not need to be a senator. I don't care about power and I don't care about influence. My job is to go in and start getting things done. So affordability is a big one. We need to start making it so that people can actually afford to eat. One of my best friends has 7 kids and he is constantly just juggling things around to make stuff work. It's getting to the breaking point. Affordability is something that we actually have to do. Healthcare, I think we need to move towards some sort of single payer universal system. And so I would love to, if I can, within the first 2 years, put a provision, a bill on the floor for a single payer system, which just going to a universal system alone is estimated to save somewhere between 25 to 30% of our overall healthcare expenditures. Now, that does not mean that we need to, nationalize every healthcare company. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think that the government needs to be responsible for covering everybody in healthcare. The more than 2, I would really love to rework our tax system and make an equitable and fair tax system that also makes it so normal folks like us don't have to spend more than 30 minutes doing taxes every year, and it's just taken care of. There's so many things that I would like to do that is going to require more than 2 years, but I think the big thing is changing the tone, the tenor, and the acceptability of what our leadership is in Congress. One of the things I've been saying is my goal is to be the most accessible senator out there. You can email me at any time. I do live streams. I do podcasts like this. I am out and about talking to folks. Anybody can ask me questions and I will try my best to answer them. I am going to be there every day fighting to make our lives better so that in the next 10, 20 years, we can look back at this period and be like, oh man, I'm glad we weren't there anymore.
My audience knows I cry on my channel all the time. I literally... my whole entire life is listening to like the news and stuff and politicians and leaders and senators and the president, whatever, right? And it's just like a lot of me, and the groups that they're representing and the billionaires and the policies and stuff, right? Everything that you just said to me just sounds like government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Like you're talking
It's
about
pretty
the
simple.
issues. Yeah, you're talking about the issues that mean something to me because you're a fairly regular guy like me. And I think that that's one of the problems. I don't think that the founding fathers, and this is a conversation for another day. In fact, I'll be live streaming with Robert Arnold next Tuesday night. We'll be talking about this topic here.
Nice. I'm still trying to get on a podcast with him as well. I'm super excited.
He's so fabulous. Watch us Tuesday night. We're going to be talking about Madison and Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson, all the Thomases and everybody, and what their vision for America was and what the Constitution and Bill of Rights actually says. I don't think that any of the founding fathers of America, I wish there were some founding mothers in there, so sexist. I don't think that any of them envisioned a world with this amount of wealth and the power imbalance and the mass communication and the ability for people to propagandize through things like the Charlie Kirk funeral, etc. They could not have seen the imbalance of power that what they were building had the potential to support, because they were living in this little colonial state where everybody knew everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were meeting a new person, somebody would send a letter of recommendation with them so that you could get to know them. We knew people face to face. We no longer have the capacity anymore to know people face to face. But I think that this should be our litmus test for any people that we are voting into office moving forward, because we put a lot of blame on people. I'm mad at Donald Trump. I'm mad at the MAGA. I'm mad at all of these people, but it's me. I voted Trump in the first time. I did things in my life, and people are engaged in behaviors right now that are supporting the system. I think that our litmus test for who we elect is, do these people actually know what the people are going through? Can they represent me? Are they representatives? Because that's what our government is supposed to be. It's supposed to be elected representatives of the citizenry, and we don't have that in any way, shape, or form right now. So that should be our only litmus test. Do they represent me? Do they even know what I'm going through? Period. I think problem solved. Do you have any thoughts on that?
If you wanted to reduce me down to a couple things, one of the things is just radical accountability. Like I think that our leadership needs to be accountable, like serious accountability in a real way, and I include myself in that. And I think that the leadership, we're talking about Congress here, but this applies elsewhere, but I don't feel that most of our senators actually have any kind of accountability at all. And they can make terrible decisions and they face no repercussions from it. And I think it's gross and it's unnecessary. And so one of the things that I'm going to do when I go there is I'm going to hold my colleagues, including my Democratic colleagues, accountable for doing the things that we promised that we would do. And if that means, again, I have to be a pain in the ass to do it, like, so be it, because ultimately at the end of the day, that is why I'm going to Washington. And I'm going to spend every day doing that.
Chris, it has been so nice to hear everything from you. I hope that you'll be hanging out in the comments a little bit. Can you promise us that you'll answer a couple comments if anybody has any questions or wants any further clarification or thoughts on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll check out the comments of the video. I'll try to do responses. And also you can find me at Volpe for America on all the social medias. Feel free to follow and ping me.
Okay,
I would be
I'll put that in
remiss.
the description.
Cool. I would be remiss to also mention that I am trying to get our fundraising up and going. I'm not very good at asking for money, but it is something that we need to do.
If you have any questions for Chris, then we have a promise that he'll come check in on the comment section every once in a while. I'll have all of Chris's links in the description. And you don't have fundraising up yet, or you do?
It is up. Yep.
Okay, so we'll put your fundraiser in there. Anyone who's part of my General Revolution, if you want to make America a little bit better and you would like to help, whether you're in Ohio or not, can people donate if they're not in Ohio? Or do you have to be in Ohio? Okay,
you don't
so
have to be in Ohio. You can be anywhere.
Can you be in England? Can you be in New Zealand?
You have to be a United States citizen.
Okay, because I have a lot of audience. My grandma's in England and Ireland. I'm sorry, but you can't donate to this one. You have to be United, because we don't want any foreign influence, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, if you're a United States citizen, yeah, that's and we use Act Blue, so they'll do all of that to make sure it's legit.
So if you'd like to actually help somebody get into office who's just a regular person who I think would do a fabulous job, we'll put that link in the description so that people can donate, and please do. even if you only have $5 to give, then that would certainly help a lot, because that's the problem. The billionaires come in with all of this money and they're able to fund their campaigns and they're able to fund everybody and they're able to stack our government with their goons and cronies. And regular people like you just aren't able to. So if anybody wants to help donate to your campaign, and I'm going to just turn this over to you for final thoughts and then I will say goodbye. So any final thoughts for us today, Chris? It's been so wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Every dollar helps. And I don't take any lobbyist or corporate money. So I'm doing 100% grassroots support. But yeah, thank you for having me on, being able to have this conversation. And I guess the last thing I'll leave people with is I know it's scary right now. I know a lot of people are exhausted and burnt out, and a lot of people aren't quite sure what to do. But I just kind of remind you that this is actually a very exciting time. We are no longer burdened with how things used to be. We can set up a vision and a direction for the society that we want to live in, and we can fight and advocate for that every day. And so we have an opportunity right now that hasn't existed, I think, in our lifetime to build something truly incredible. And that's a very exciting time to be. So when you're maybe feeling a little bit down and anxious, I feel you. Those feelings are legit. But just take a breath and find somebody maybe locally, or if you want to be a part of our campaign, there's lots of ways to be involved. But we have a chance right now to open the door to an America that could be truly blessed. Again, I appreciate it, Jenny. Thank you for having me. It was a really great conversation. Happy to be on any other time.
All right. And I'm going to take you up on that. So Chris and I will be going live. I need to see if I have cancellation in my schedule here next week, but I'd like to have you on live so that my audience can ask you some questions. So watch for that. And thank you everybody for watching. You guys are absolutely amazing. Don't be hopeless. Don't give up.
Got this. We've got
this. We've got this. America has been through so many crazy things and we've gotten through it. We've got through it because people pulled together. So love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Chris. This was wonderful.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Bye, everybody.